Hello.
How are you?
Meh.
Yeah, I'm like irritated today. I'm just irritated.
Me too.
Yes.
I've had some highs lately, but I've just been a little bit just like curmudgeony, grumbly.
Yeah,
Brr.
I know. I don't know. I think part of it for me is like the end of the school year, and that just it's just it's worse than like the holidays. I think it's just like there's so much going on, and these
Hmm.
kids are going everywhere, and there's all these like concerts
Yeah.
and this thing and that thing, and then there's no rest for like just sitting down and like looking at the news because it gets me irritated again and
Mhm.
every
Yeah.
with every turn and every day. So yeah, irritated.
Yeah.
That's the word
Me
I would
too.
use. Have you recovered from our big blue gala?
Yes. The funny thing is like the day after, I was like, I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting around and enjoying myself. And then I remembered I had a car full of stuff that we brought home from the gala. And I forgot about all the work it is to wrap it up. So I did not get to just sit and do nothing, but I didn't do a lot.
Oh, good, good. And I managed to wait a couple of days before I asked you what the total was that
Yes,
we raised at the Blue Gala, and I was very like proud of myself because, as you
I
know,
know.
I
I
want to
know.
know
For those
that
of
as
you that
soon as
don't know,
possible.
Sarah's usually like, all right, it's over. How much did we make?
That
And
night,
I
let's
can't
sit
tell
around
you
a
that yet.
table and count. No, but what is the total?
Um, now I'm trying to remember. I want to say it was around, did I say 36 or
I think
37,000?
that's what you said, yeah.
Um, I've still got a few outstanding receipts. I want to go over the numbers all just to make sure. We still got a few people that have to pay their sponsorships. Um,
Just wait.
but I don't want
I
to, I
will
wasn't
pay
pointing fingers.
it. I know. It's just a matter of writing the check and handing it
I
to
know.
you.
Yep.
Yeah, for the folks listening, so the Midland County Democratic Party has for the last 3 years put on a big, fancy-ish uh, uh, fundraising event that we call the Blue Gala, and we put on every year, and actually, um, we joke about the fundraising part of it, but it has raised more money every year that we've done that, and kind of like quintupled the budget for the Midland County
Yeah.
Party, or more than that maybe, and in this one event. And
Yeah.
so, big deal. And I think an even bigger deal this year, because this year you have the space that seats about 270 people. We've got these ticket prices that are, reasonable, but not nothing. We ask for sponsors, we do a silent auction, but it's all in this time frame right now where this is an off cycle for politics year, and there's a whole lot of economic uncertainty in the world. And so when
It
everyone could
doesn't
have,
feel off cycle though. Just saying that.
well, yeah, I know, not for those of us who
It
are
does
in it
not feel
all,
off
all of it.
cycle.
Yeah. But if there were ever a year where people would want to kind of pull back and not
Yeah.
come, or not sponsor something or donate to the silent auction, it would
Yeah.
have been this one, and yet we still exceeded our
Mhm.
fundraising from the previous year. So it's pretty cool.
In case in point for that economic anxiety, we just had a school millage proposal on the
Yeah,
ballot. Many reasons why that did not pass. One of the major reasons was the economic anxiety.
exactly, exactly. So I mean, aside from the dollar amount, the takeaway for me, on that night, is that people are still like, that we're still motivated. We've got this
Mhm.
momentum that we've been building in Midland over these last 8 years or so. We can sell out the biggest room in the country club every year for this gala, raise a bunch of money, and just continuing to widen our net of supporters and volunteers and donors and all of that stuff.
Yeah. And it's really, and we'll talk a little bit about that, like how we did it and why we did it, and just, a few tips for anybody that might be thinking, I could never. our community could never, because we thought the same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But prior to, I haven't gone back and looked at all of the Midland Dems finances, but I know prior to that, we would generally bring in maybe a couple $1,000s a year, if that. It was usually like a membership fee, which I discontinued, and actually brought in more money once I discontinued a membership fee.
Yep.
So yeah, that's kind of, and the most money that I know that the Midland Democratic Party made prior to us coming onto the board, I think was in 2020. And that was the year that Biden was running against Trump. So it was a presidential year. It was an anti-Trump year. It was, it was just such a big thing. And I think at most they brought in $20,000. And that also was because of this whole fluke with buying signs for Biden in a way that was not appropriate, and we've had to pay a penalty for that. The party paid a penalty for doing things in an inappropriate campaign finance way. So let that be a lesson to you. Always learn your campaign finance rules.
Absolutely.
And two, always be willing to admit that you were wrong and fix it, because that is extremely important. But yeah, raising money was not a big focus of this party, and we changed that.
Yeah. I mean, we prove all the time, right, that the stuff that we thought about, how many people there are in Midland who are willing to get involved in politics, how many people are willing to vote for Democrats, how many people are willing to donate or volunteer or whatever. And we bust through those assumptions and more with greater and greater extents every year. And so the Blue Gala really exemplifies that. So congratulations on a great event.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. So it's a lot of work, but it's super fun. And we did it, but we didn't get no flack from it. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we saw on social media?
Yeah, so there was just one person, and I'm not going to go into extensive detail because we're not naming and shaming and anything like that. And I get their point. But it was just a comment about, nothing says party of the people like having a big gala at the Midland Country Club. And like, I get that. I get that point of, we do want to be a party for the people. And I think that we are, and yes, we have perceptions to work on, but and I of course argued, because that's who I am and it's what I do. And it was a nice discussion, because this person and I get along. We didn't agree, but we got along. But it's just this whole concept of like, well, okay, then what do you want us to do? Make no money? And somebody else commented, well, we shouldn't have money in politics. Okay, fine. I don't disagree with that. I super agree with getting corporate money out of politics. Not necessarily all money, but corporate money for sure. There's limits on individual people. So, hey, that's okay. And then there's arguments for like totally getting it out and making it like a straight sum that you get from the government. But I'm not sure I'm into that. But regardless, I get the point, but that's not the system we live in.
Exactly. We have to like do our best in the reality that we live in everything. Like, we live in this current reality. Like, that's the truth, that money is in politics. It is the sad truth. That is, money is a very powerful element of politics. That's the truth. And while I and you and so many people would like to see that changed, we have to exist in the reality that we live in right now and leverage as much as we can in that space. And if that means having a gala at the country club, then do that. Now, here's the other side of all that. One, I know we gave away a ton of tickets to that event to folks who could not otherwise pay. Two, we kept the ticket price pretty low for an event at the country club. I think it was what, $55.
No, it was $65 this year.
$65, which is probably one of the lowest sort of ticket prices for fundraising events in town like that. And our other events throughout the year, we have a couple of marquee events throughout the year, very accessible to. We have a picnic, we have a chili cook-off, we have just meetups, we have euchre night sometimes, like all of those things. But this is the event that we have set aside to make as much fundraising dollars as possible, because the truth of the matter is there's money in politics. And if we want to be successful in politics in today's rules, while we're trying to change tomorrow, then we have to raise a bunch of money. We just have to.
Yeah, and we did that 2 years in a row, and then there were other. That was not our sole fundraising. For sure, our biggest
Yeah.
in one sort of like chunk. Over the election, the 2024 election, you bring in money from signs and people coming in, and there's the Harris campaign, and like there's all sorts of other ways that money comes in, but this is our biggest like sort of chunk, and because of that, we could hire what did we call them? A campaign coordinator? I don't even remember what we called Michael's position.
Uh, County organizer.
County organizer. So he handled 8 campaigns, small local campaigns here in Midland, that were all the way from super competitive and ready to knock on every door to I'm just a name on the ballot kind of a thing. And he worked in the office and handled a lot of stuff like that. Like he took care of so many things. So we hired that. We have a lot of volunteers. But definitely when it's campaign season, you're competing with Senate volunteers and presidential volunteers and state house and congressional, whatever. So in order to meet our goal, our door knocking goals for our very local candidates, we hired a couple of people to knock doors. And honestly, they were people that would have that were already volunteering, but we paid them to do even more on top of that. And sometimes they would be like, oh no, that session, that was my volunteer session. So don't pay me for that one. I wanted to volunteer that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we sent out mailers and we did postcards and we, helped pay for an office, and like there is so much that we did. And things, just little things, I won't even go into the list, but just things to make our place look more professional, so we're not like a fly by the seat of our pants kind of an organization. So yeah, just doing a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, and when we're thinking about fundraising, we're thinking about, as a local party, that we want to raise this money to elect candidates, right, that are Democrats and aligned with our values. And we talk about that in the board and other spaces about like it's our responsibility to spend this money to elect these folks. We don't like hoard it and like have this big rainy day fund, or keep it for a big lavish party or something like that. We talk about like people entrust us to be stewards of these funds locally. They gave it to us because they care about the local side of things. There's plenty other political groups and candidates asking for their money, but they're giving it to us locally, to keep it local, to do everything we can, to spend it as much as we can in as best ways that we can to elect local candidates. And so, if that means having one big gala event a year, where we do try to make it accessible, but in addition to the other fundraising opportunities throughout the year, then that's what we're going to do, and it would be negligence not to the work that we're trying to do in our community.
To turn your nose up to opportunity, because I guess it makes us look elitist. I don't know. We've looked so non-elitist here in Midland for so long. Like, is one party a year really going to ruin our reputation? I don't know. It's just, I think it, and I think this actually goes, and I do want to get into the nitty gritty of planning this, but I think it goes to the idea of people criticize Democrats and they don't criticize Republicans. And it's not because there isn't plenty to criticize in Republicans or because people think well of the Republicans. It's like, we don't expect anything better from those assholes. But you guys, we're going to hold you to another standard, because nobody's pointing out the big fancy stuff that the Republicans in the community do, or the really wealthy people in Midland that own half the town and are donating money to the Republicans. But we hold one gala and now we're like elitist. I felt that was an unfair criticism.
I agree. I agree. I agree. So what kinds of nitty gritty are you thinking about sharing?
So I wonder if you like, I want to go back to the first time that we were sitting in my basement, because for those of you who don't know, when we don't have an office, which is we only have one for about 6 years around, or 6 years, 6 months around the election, we meet in my basement to have our
It's a
officers
nice
meeting.
basement though, and it's a
It's a nice
couch.
basement. It's not
Yeah.
like a scary, yucky basement, but it's still a basement. Nice little couch. Anyway, and we were sitting around, and it was one of the first officer meetings of this new group, because I had been a chair for 2 years before that, just figuring stuff out, learning the ropes, and then realized that like Saginaw and Bay Democratic parties do a big fundraiser like that every year, and I was like, well, why don't we? Can we? I don't know. And I brought it up at one of our meetings, and of course, Sarah says her famous line,
Go
go
big
big
or
or
go
go
home.
home. Yep, go big or go home. And that, that decided it for us, because we were like, how much is this going to cost? Can we do it? What happens if we can't pay for it? That there was a real fear. And we kind of figured out bare minimum, we needed like $15,000 to pull it
Yep.
off.
Yep.
And we were like, what do we do if we don't raise that money? And we went big.
Yeah. I think you have to, right? And I think there's a lot of trepidation in all sorts of places in life, right? But especially in politics, especially if you're living in a pretty like area that's known to be red, and you're Democratic group or an activist group, and you're kind of nervous about sticking your neck out.
Mm-hmm.
But go big or go home has been kind of a mantra for our work in the community since the very beginning. I mean, when I think about helping get the Women of Michigan Action Network, right, started and off the ground while the Democratic Party was still kind of small and not super active. We talked about go big or go home in terms of like big protests, big rallies, big asks of our elected officials, big ideas like we're going to force John Moulinar to have a town hall when we know he doesn't want to, and those kinds of things. Kind of standing in our in our like the righteousness, essentially, like standing
Yeah.
on this place of like we're on the right side of history here,
Yeah.
and we're going to take the flack. And we talked about when we got pushback and we got a ton of it, and we still get a ton of it, then that just smells like success, because
Yeah.
they wouldn't be paying attention to us if they're not worried about it. That translated into my campaigns for state house, and we talked about go big or go home. I mean, the most concrete example of that was when it came time to order yard signs, and we thought, how many yard signs do we need, and who knows? And I think we said something like, well, maybe it's 1,500. Let's get 1,500. And I'm like, let's double it. And they're like, okay, Sarah, let's sure, whatever. And I'm like, no, let's double that. And we got like 3,000 or something like that, or many thousands. And
Yeah.
looking at that big stack of yard signs in the office, I remember thinking, oh my God, we
What
are
did I do?
never going to get rid of all of these yard signs. But we did.
Yeah.
And that really got the word out about the campaign. And so yeah, I mean, I think that mantra holds, and it holds all the time. And so
Mm-hmm.
every year it's bigger, every year it's better. And don't be afraid, right, to
Mm-hmm.
stand in like the justice and the right side of history, and come what may, right, just make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I want to talk a little bit about the nitty gritty of planning something, and I'll just be real quick, because we can't tell you how to plan everything in a 30-minute podcast.
Yeah.
But there's just some things like deciding where it's going to be, and that could be, for us, it was a little bit symbolic. There are a couple of locations in Midland that we could have chosen. There are various hotels. There's a great hall. The country club was sort of this pinnacle of, oh, if you can get to the country club, you've
Yeah.
made it. And yes, I know that does make us sound elitist, but we have always had very grassroots sort of messaging and fundraisers and activities, and we're out there planting flowers and walking in parades, like
That's right. Yeah.
that's what we
Yeah.
do. So
Yeah.
this one little event I didn't think was too big a deal. But yeah, so you pick your event. It could be symbolic. It could be what you think you can afford. Like while we decided go big or go home, maybe you decide go big-ish. You got to figure out what works for you. So you're going to decide your place, your time, your date. You're going to want to get as big a name of speaker as you can.
Yes.
Look to, elected officials and don't think small. Our first speaker was Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. Our second speaker was Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist. And our speakers this time were all 3 U.S. Senate candidates for Michigan: Abdul El-Sayed, Mallory McMorrow, and Haley Stevens. I mean, it was such a huge catch for us to get those. So, go big, go for that, go big on that for sure. And talk to, if you have a Democratic congressperson or state house or state senate, talk to them. One, not only so that they can be a speaker, but two, they can help you find somebody. And if you're in a red area, which a lot of us are, where you don't have anybody that's going to do that, go to like the next county or the next region over, like, because we would ask Dan Kildee, who was not our congressman for many years, to come speak at stuff because we didn't have anybody. We weren't, John Moolenar wasn't going to come speak at any of our stuff, and Dan Kildee would come. So reach out, try to find those resources. And then one big thing, I think, you're going to have people that can plan flowers and table decorations and all that kind of stuff. Like, you're going to have people that can plan parties. The real trick is the sponsors. And if you don't think you have a big base of sponsor or base of donors, you may not, maybe your party hasn't raised a lot of money, but you can go to anybody that has given you money. You can go to your volunteer base. Like, we set our limits. I think we keep raising them every single year. This last year, the top level was $2,500, which I know sounds huge, guys. That's like the host level. But we did get quite a few of those, surprisingly. And then I think we were, what was it, 1,250. We were going with the 25 theme. And then the next was 525 and the bottom was 250. We get mostly that 250. That makes up a huge chunk of what we get. So like you start with like your membership and your email list and your Facebook and your whatever, like your local group, but go look and see people in your county that donated to Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, whomever. Like, you can find that information of who donated to Democrats in your county. Start calling them and emailing them, however you can get, create your sponsorship group. Our sponsorship group keeps getting smaller every year. It started out with like 10 people and now it's down to like 3 of us because, you create relationships with these people and you don't need. So at first we had like this big extensive group and everybody was calling everybody they knew to create the people, or, to generate the people that were going to do this. So you would really be surprised. We didn't think that we were like, we have to raise $15,000 to cover this. And what did I think the first year we did 30 something.
30. Yeah, I think it was.
I can't remember. I'd have to go back and 30. Look.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that's important because I think when people think about an event, you might think about ticket sales, right? And you might think about the silent auction, right, which is right there. We had both of those, but the real way we raise dollars at that event is through sponsorships.
Yeah.
And so that's really important. I will add another element that adds to the success, and that's a really stellar events team.
Yeah.
If you have that's so important if you're trying to build this local foundation of things, understanding, we've talked about this in other episodes, understanding people's best magic and where they gravitate toward and where they're really amazing at, and really, giving them the opportunity to shine with all of that is so important. And it's true in these events too, because we have an events team that, on the 3rd year of this, we just let them go, right?
Yeah.
Like, they do most of that work and they sweat all those amazing details. And from like centerpieces to little note cards to like what we're going to have for food to like how the flow comes in terms of like checking people in and to going out and trying to get donations to the silent auction to figure
Yeah.
out how the silent auction will work. I mean, all of those details make the event like make or break the event, right? And
Mhm.
so finding those folks who are amazing at those things, that's not my magic at all. Like, don't put me on that events team.
Mhm.
I'm no good at those things. But our events team folks are so good at that. And I can't thank them enough. They really make
Yeah.
the event happen.
And I
For sure.
really do love stuff like that. That is something I love planning events. But if you have a group of people who can do it and you have other things that you can be doing,
Right.
sometimes I had to give up being sort of part of the decorations and the whatever, and I love that stuff, but it was not where I was needed.
Yeah.
I was needed doing a lot of other stuff. And so I backed off, and they did a phenomenal job. I like
Okay.
when I walked in, I helped set up a little bit. And so when I walked in, the tables were already all set up, and I was like doing the, oh my
So
God,
good. Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. The other thing I'll just say about our event, right? And this whole podcast and the book that we're writing is about kind of building blue power and red areas. There's something so special about being in a space with, if you're sitting in what you used to be or maybe still is a red area, and you throw a big event and 250, 270 people show up wearing blue, and you're just in this space of all these folks who believe what you believe in, think think are aligned with how you are politically, like are connecting with each other. We still get that moment where like somebody shows up in an event and like their neighbor is also there and they're like, oh
yeah.
my God, I didn't know you were a Democrat. And it's
Yeah.
so wonderful. And like it has so many benefits beyond just that one night and beyond the fundraising capability of that one event, because it just continues to build this momentum and this idea that we're not alone here.
Mhm.
Um, and it allows us to continue to build and to celebrate what we've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, it's ripples, and I forget, somebody famous recently said something about ripples, and I don't remember who it was or whatever, but it's the same basic idea. You throw a pebble into a pond, and the ripples go out and reach other places, and butterfly effect, whatever you want to think about it, and that is throwing a whole
Yeah.
bunch of pebbles into a pond and getting some ripples.
Yeah.
I had so many people come up to me. We had quite a few new people that had never been to the gala and never really been involved before, and they were just like, oh my gosh, I feel so energized, this is
Yeah.
amazing. And it wasn't about the fancy clothes or the fancy dinner or the fancy place. It was the feeling of being with people who care about the same things and want to get out there and make a difference.
Yeah, totally. And we had some pretty awesome speakers
Oh my
who had some
gosh.
really great messages too. And it was really good. It
Yeah,
was it
it
was a
was,
good
the whole
night.
thing was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and I'm just thrilled that it keeps building year after year. I would say if you're kind of looking to build blue power, I don't know if I'd start with a big blue gala. If
We certainly didn't
you're
start
starting
with the
from the
gala,
beginning,
but
but it's just a great example of what's possible
mhm,
in a community. Because remember, Midland, as of like 10 years ago, was totally Republican, completely red. Like if you did the analytics on it, totally red. If you did the like just talking to people, just the like vibe of
yeah.
like everyone, or just like the perception when you talked about the town was this is like the most conservative town in Michigan. And we elect Democrats here in Midland, the city now. We
Mhm.
vote for the ballot initiatives that are aligned with the Democratic Party platform, like reproductive freedom and voters not politicians and anti-gerrymandering and all of those things. And that's all of this work that we've been doing. And like we do this Blue Gala every year to be able to continue to build that work into the future.
Yeah, and I'll just leave everybody with one little thing. If Well, two things. One, there is a big protest we're doing June 14th here in Midland. It's along the lines of the No Kings protest that you're seeing all over the country, except for ours is No Kings, Just Queens, because we are having some drag queens as our MCs and hosts.
Awesome.
So
It's gonna be
yeah,
so
so
awesome.
we'll share on our socials about those events or that event, so you can come join us if you like. And if you are somebody that wants to have an event like we've been talking about, but really just feel lost and want a little bit more information, you can email us at, gotta remember, I think it's beyondresistancepod@gmail.com. Email us, I'll send you some more information, and we'll try to help you out.
Yeah, that's what this is all about, is helping other communities to kind of emulate what we've been able to do here in Midland to continue to build blue power all over the country. Um, awesome. Well, usually we have a fun question at the end, Jennifer, but I don't know if I have one in mind. Do
I
you?
have one for you.
Oh, okay, okay,
Do
okay.
you have any big plans for Memorial Weekend, Sarah?
Why, Jennifer? I don't know. Do I? Well, as you know, we're going on a road trip because
Yeah.
apparently that's what we do. So, um, yeah, so Jennifer and I, along with our friends Elena and Michael, are going to hit the road Friday late morning and go visit our other good friend, Molly, who had the audacity to move away from Midland a couple years ago and moved to Milwaukee. And we haven't seen her new house yet. And we haven't
Mhm.
seen her since January.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was gonna say
And
September
so
because that's when we went to Colorado, but we were together
we
in
did
January in
a
New
road
York.
trip. Yeah, we did a road
Yeah.
trip in January.
Yep.
So I'm excited to see her again and to see Milwaukee and to
Yeah.
just hang out.
That'll
So
be
yeah,
fun.
yeah. It'll be good. We got my minivan, the road trip mobile,
Yeah.
all ready
Our
to
third
go.
trip in the
So
minivan.
that's right. Awesome. All right. Well, have a good one. I'm sure we'll try to get back to recording a new podcast in a week or so.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.